70 degrees. Joining us is 2nd Congressional District Congresswoman Yvette Herrell. Good morning, Congresswoman.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, we are so glad to hear from you today. I know you had an exciting weekend over at CPAC there in the free state of Texas, and I want to ask you a little bit about that, I'm sure. And was there any kind of buzz over the Virgin Galactic space flight launch from New Mexico yesterday? Anybody talking about that in where you were at CPAC?
Yeah, a couple of people were. They were kind of paying attention to it. And, of course, we were paying attention to it as well and then did a little post about it. So sounds like a successful trip for Richard Branson. So I'm very, very happy for them. And it sounds like we're on our way to maybe finally getting to use that spaceport for the reason it was built. So this is good news finally for New Mexico.
Have you ever been out there? I understand you can't really get there unless you have like a tour pass or something like that. Have you been to the spaceport?
I have. I've been out there a number of times, from the very beginning when they first started the construction to once they had the hangars built and everything. Now, I haven't been out there in the last year or year and a half or so, but yes, now it's a lot more secure. They have security out there all the time. So, and they were offering tours out there, but I'm not sure if those are still going on. I'm sure they stopped those during the COVID, so I'm not sure what their schedules look like right now.
Yeah, well, and plus with this flight being planned, I'm sure access was was very limited while they got this flight figured out and off the ground. I also wanted to ask you, I guess there's some protests in Cuba that's going on. As a member of Congress, have you heard anything, have been briefed on anything on what is happening down in Cuba, and was that discussed at all at CPAC this weekend?
It was not, and I'm not super familiar with it. I know our guys probably back in D.C. are paying attention to it, but I personally have not had a briefing on it yet, but I'll be anxious to see. And I know they had some briefings on the Haitian president that was killed, I think, early last week. So they've had some briefings on that as well. So I'll be curious to get on the phone with our staff after a while and kind of get myself caught up to speed on what's happening. But, yeah, a lot of things happening all over the country and all over the world, it seems like.
That's for sure. Well, let's talk a little bit about CPAC. You were there. I think you were on a panel discussion about energy. I watched a video clip. You were interviewed by the folks at Right Side Broadcasting and gave a nice representation for New Mexico. I know we all appreciate that. What was the mood? What was the attitude? What was CPAC like this year?
Oh my gosh! Well, this was the second one they've had this year. And it's just so refreshing to be in an event that is just packed with the energy. People that really love America, that really want to see things change and want to stand up for the liberties that they believe in. And so always there's such high energy. And of course there was just a huge list of speakers. I mean, everybody from President Trump to Donald Trump Jr. spoke, Glenn Beck. I mean, Alan West was there, Ben Carson was there, Kristi Noem. I mean, just so many great speakers, keynote speakers that were there, and just the crowd was electric. And I tell you, it's like when I'm in the district, people are excited about our country, and they want to see changes on the federal level. And we've got to take the House back in 2022 in order to at least stifle some of these bad policies. But I was just very honored to be invited to come out and speak. Energy security panel. And, of course, energy is such an important issue for New Mexico, but quite frankly, the nation. And so it was a nice opportunity to represent New Mexico.
That is fantastic. And I guess the president, former President Trump, still a little bit popular, do you think?
Oh, yeah, I would say so. It was, he spoke. He was the end of the show yesterday. And, of course, the room was packed. The hotel was packed. And, again, it's just, I think people are looking for somebody to kind of lead the way. Things feel very fractured in different states and counties and around the country. And so still, I believe a lot of people look to President Trump and his ideas, his policy, and his love for country and his love for the American people. And I think that is always just a great combination. And certainly the people that attended CPAC loved it.
Well, I'm sure they did. And you're right about just a love of country. That seems to be a problem nowadays from our leadership in Washington all the way down is that that we're horrible. We're terrible country. We were founded on racist principles, and we've got to be destroyed. And that's just not the way it is. That's just not true. And so I'm sure it's, you're right. It's great to be with some people that don't dislike America.
Right. And I think there's a lot more people out there that feel the way that you and I do, the way the people that attended CPAC do. I think there are a lot more people. And I heard an interview Mark Levin did. He has a new book coming out, I think, this week. But, he was talking about it. This is American Marxism, and so many of the things that are happening are being paid for by our taxpayer dollars. And they've done such a good job. When I say they, I mean the left, to just infiltrate these mandates or this indoctrination, if you will, everything from, the NEA to other unions to, our county commissions, our city commissions, and I'm talking around the country, and then just pushing this agenda where we become so reliant on federal government. And it's a frightening thought, to think about our country being dismantled and destroyed. And I think one thing he pointed out, which I think this is something everybody can relate to, it feels like now it's very blatant and very open and very obvious. They're not trying to, hide things or slide things in on the fly. It is very obvious what they're doing to our country. And I think people are very concerned about the future of our nation. And I think that's why we'll see this silent majority really start to step up, because this critical race theory and this woke corporation and all these things, that polls very high amongst all Americans. Doesn't matter the party or the race, but about 80% of the people of America do not think that's the right thing. They don't agree with it. They understand our history, that we learn from our history. We make ourselves a better, stronger nation. And so they're continuing to push this agenda, even though it's such a smaller percentage of people that even think it's a good idea. And I think that's one thing that, we can take a little bit of hold of hope, that knowing that so many people, and forget party affiliation, we're just talking about Americans that love our nation and can honestly see what is happening and these policies that are pushing us so far to the left that it really is now equating to Marxism.
Well, it is. And then you get so disappointed in things like professional sports or even the Olympics, where people who are supposed to be representing the United States of America don't even want to be shown with the flag or standing for the national anthem. And it gets very, very frustrating for people.
Yeah, that for me, that just makes me sick, because here's the truth. We have the greatest country and all these freedoms, and it provide the opportunity for these professional athletes, be it football, baseball, basketball, or the Olympic team, and they're actually on a team representing our country, and our country wants to be proud of what we produce in terms of gold medalists and silver medalists, and yet they use that opportunity as a platform, and I think that is morally wrong. I think that is disrespectful to the American people and certainly to our veterans that fought so hard to give us these freedoms that we appreciate. And, in a lot of nations, they would not have those freedoms. So it is really disappointing to me that they've used that as a platform. And unfortunately, it just makes all of them look bad. And I know there are some amazing, freedom-loving, patriotic athletes. But, then you get those that still, and what I mean by that is, you've got one or two bad apples that are stealing the spotlight from those that are really doing it for the right reason, their love for sport, their love for country, and they want to make America proud.
I definitely do. I know you've spent quite a bit of time with border issues. You've been down on the border recently. What's the latest that you're seeing with what's happening on the border? And also, I find it interesting that other governors from other states are sending people to Texas, for example, to help that state with their border issues. What's the latest that you're seeing with the border crisis right now, Congresswoman?
Yeah, it's not getting any better, and you're right. I think it's 7 or 8 states now that are sending National Guard troops down to Texas and Arizona, and of course Rick DeSantis out of Florida is sending resources. Governor Abbott wants to finish the barrier. the wall in Texas. And, here's what I concern myself with. It is not letting up. We're seeing, in fact, they are telling me the numbers for June are higher than they were for May. So it's continuing to grow. It is continuing to be a crisis. But I'm fearful because our governor will not take this crisis seriously. I've asked her to put more, or to put just put our National Guard back on the southern border. She will not do it. And what scares me is thinking, if Texas and Arizona move forward with really securing their border, then New Mexico is just the big, missing link. And I think then we'll see even more traffic coming across our southern border, which will put more pressure on our small communities and the interior because, these people are moving up. The cost to the American people is something no one ever talks about, and it is in the billions of dollars when you start thinking about the money that they're getting paid when they get here, all the services they're provided. In the bill the other day at the Appropriations Committee, they appropriated $42 million for civil liberty attorneys for these people coming to our country illegally. But if they feel that their civil liberty was violated, then they will have a stable full of attorneys and be good to go to sue our law enforcement or our Border Patrol agents. And I just think that is absolutely twisted and ridiculous because of all the pictures of all the people I've seen coming across the border. I don't think there's very many that understand what a civil liberty is. So they're clearly going to be coached and coddled, and then they're going to be lawyered up, and it just compromises, again, our Border Patrol agents, the ability to do their jobs and do them well because of fear for another lawsuit. So this attack on, defunding the police, now giving defense funds to lawyers to help these people who are no regard that they're breaking the law coming here, but we're going to go ahead and make sure they have money allocated for attorneys for them. I mean, this makes no sense, and I think holding the American people to a different standard, it's completely wrong and ignorant, and it just shows that this Biden administration is so out of touch when you're putting the value of those breaking the law to get here above the value of American citizens, then something is terribly wrong with that, and the outcomes will not be good.
No, and I think, and what's sad is that I think most people see that, even first and second and third generation folks that did come here legally and immigrated legally see that, and people are just scratching their heads. I kind of laughed. My wife was telling me that there was out in the Hamptons or something, they don't have enough people to mow the lawn, and so these multi-millionaire people are out there, mowing their lawns and complaining about it. And I thought, well, we're letting in hundreds of thousands of people across the border every single month. Seems to me like they could open up their homes and welcome some folks in to help them out there.
Sure.
But you don't see that going on. Congresswoman,
that's funny.
Can you stick around for a little bit? Do you?
Sure.
Because we have to break for news here in just a little bit. But
sure.
You mentioned the governor. What does the governor? And we're going to break for news in about a minute. What does the governor say when you and other folks present the evidence to her of the crisis on the border? What does she say?
Well, what's sad is I sent her a letter, had it in writing, and asked her to put National Guard troops down on the border so that we could help with the shortfall in terms of boots on the ground. And I was very disappointed because instead of responding back to our office as a professional, she went to the news media and then accused me of not knowing what I was doing and said, that I needed to understand that I needed to take all this up with the federal government, which, by the way, the governor of New Mexico is the only one who has the authority to put the National Guard troops on our southern border. So I clearly do know whose authority is whose. And so she has really just kind of not taken it seriously. She's never reached out to have a genuine conversation. Same thing as the Biden administration. When we really did, we put a letter to Kamala Harris asking her to come to New Mexico, and this silence speaks volumes because it just signals to the entire country and the state they're not interested in what our communities are going through.
Okay.
So it's really unfortunate.
Very good. Please hang on for a second. We're going to go to news. This is KSVP Artesia. We'll be right back.